So what I noticed, even in this space, when I had a camera in front of me, I was invisible. But when I stepped in front of the camera, now you saw my gift, which is crazy. Like, it's literally even people I'm in business with and dealing with, it's like, yo, you dope. I was like, yo, I met you 8 times before. 8 times.
Before we get into this episode, I know you've been struggling with the idea of starting your own business and launching a premium product that you know is going to transform lives. So I have a bomb resource for you. The man himself, Words Taylor, is going to help you launch your product or service for the clients who need your help right now. Now, you can't call yourself a business owner unless you are getting in front of new clients every single day, and Words knows exactly how to do that. All you have to do is tap in so he can teach you his 6-figure launch strategy that's produced over $5 million in client sales. So all you have to do is go to highticketlaunchsecrets.com. That's highticketlaunchsecrets.com and get into the free training. It's happening this week. So go to highticketlaunchsecrets.com and let's get into the episode. Welcome to another episode. Nah. Welcome to a special edition, obviously, of the Work and Play podcast. We have a special guest today, Mr. Can I do it? Black man with a Spanish name, loves long beaches, long walks on the beach.
Long walks on the beach, yeah.
Cupid is his first name. No, I'm kidding.
Going out and staying in.
you know I would, but I'm not Christine.
I'm an Aries.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? April, baby.
I'm not gonna mess up your intro. What I'm gonna say is, this man has really changed my perception on how I show up, my presence. I've been really big on professional brand for a long time, but coming in as an entrepreneur and thinking about my brand holistically, you definitely leveled that up. Like theoretically, literally, you know, like the content, all that. So without further ado, that's how I know this man, but I would love for y'all to get to know him yourselves.
Look, I'm big on saying, hey, I'm Jose. But the biggest thing, I don't like to talk about the resume. And the main reason I don't like to talk about the resume is because if I have never added any value to your life, it don't mean anything, right? It's almost like if I'm in a relationship and then you talking about your old work, you don't want to hear about that. Yet at the same time, if I'm bringing value to the new space, then you're like, okay, I rock with them. So they'll find out about me as we go through the conversation.
Absolutely. So let's start with the value that you brought to my life.
Yeah.
I will say the first thing I've probably, well, of course it was a morning meetup, but you got a chance to come into one of our coaching sessions and you taught on Canva. Yep. And it was the way you taught on Canva that you cannot find on YouTube University.
Right.
It was basically like, before I took a class with you, I was really struggling on finding my creativity.
Yep.
I'm a data analyst by trade, so I'm like, I'm not really creative. But when you teach Canva, you teach it from a perspective of like how you can play with things so you can be more creative. So let's start there. How did you learn how to teach something so basic in a very fundamental theoretical way?
The biggest thing is I've always been a creative. I've always looked at art. I was one of those ones who was always drawing. I wanted to be a comic book artist. And what happened was, it was this thing that came out, it was called Photoshop. Photoshop didn't agree with me too much. It was too convoluted. My brain did not work to that point where it was like the way the structure was. And I was like, all right, cool. So I had started out with different types of web. There was like a lot of web creative programs or what have you. One of them I want to say was like Pick Play, and another one was GIMP, which was like a fake Photoshop. And then when Canva came, I was like, bet. And so my whole thing was, okay, how could I take what I see and recreate that thing over here, but without doing it in Photoshop? So that's when I started learning Canva. And I was trying different things out. And again, my mind would say, this is what I wanted to create. And then I was like, all right, let's try to take this thing to the limitations. The crazy part is, even through that process, I would send up through, like, you know how they have like suggestions? So I would send up different suggestions and things of that nature. And I would see it unfold within like 3 to 6 months. I don't know if it was me. I'm gonna take the credit, but I'm gonna say it.
What do you mean? Like it would send you suggestions and you would put it in and you would see it unfold. What does that mean?
So what happens is they wouldn't send suggestions, I would. So they'd be like, how do you like it going on? Like you can go into the help and like, you want to send suggestions. Yeah. So basically I was part of their team, but not getting paid for it. Like the last thing that they need, I'm telling you, Canva, I promise you, Jose said it. right here on the Work and Play podcast, y'all need layers. If y'all able to get layers in there, you shutting the game. Y'all already doing good. We shutting the game all the way down if you got layers in there.
Listen, and I think I know what you mean, because now that I've done so many of my my flyers and things like that, you're just talking about like the layers, like because we have to recreate layers. I remember your class when you were talking about showing how you like look like the arm is here and the words are there. You mean layers like that?
Yeah, since you got different things that are on different types of levels on the image. Yeah. And what happens is you have layers in Photoshop, you have layers in Canva, but at the same time, if you had them on the side, it was like, okay, this one is the picture of Aria. This one is the picture of her fonts. This one is the graphic. This one is maybe just the logo. This one is that. And if you can actually manipulate and just click to go to each layer, shutting the game down.
Yeah, it's a little bit.
I just gave them $1 billion, literally.
That's lit. Because right now, playing with that send backwards and you don't know which layer it actually is. Listen, we're talking a little bit technical, but I promise you, I didn't know any of this before I actually met Jose.
There it is.
So one of the things that just about you that I heard is like, you liked Canva because it allowed you to be free in like your creative. You said Photoshop was a little bit more structured.
Yeah, it was too much structure. I couldn't understand where to put, it just made no sense. Canva was easy. And so my whole thing, a lot of times I'm gonna try to figure out the easiest way to do it, but at the same time get the same results.
Yeah.
That's in anything that I do. I'm gonna figure out what is the easiest way to do it, but get those same results. Like, let's look at this set that you got right here. We was like, okay, cool. We got it. Like, it looks like a $1 million set.
Facts.
It's about a couple thousand, but at the same time, we put that same time in. Yeah. And what happens is when you get those same results on the back end, nobody would know. Yeah. So you're in the trenches.
Let's tap into a little bit of your creativity, because you said you like to take things that you see and put and create it in Canva, but that is holistic to who you are, kind of, because I've seen you go and navigate through different like mediums and different industries. And when you were younger, you said you wanted to be a cartoon artist. So
here's the crazy part. I wanted to do everything. I'm talking about magician. Yeah. I wanted to be a comic book artist. I wanted to be of course, in music, I wanted to be a producer, and like a rapper, singer, a writer, author. It was just so much that I want to be. And the main reason I always say is that everything that I touched, I did it at a B+ average or better. Everything. Right. And so I thought that I can do everything at a B+ average. I called it the Michael Jordan syndrome. I was like, who was the best scorer of all time? It wasn't Michael Jordan. It was like Wilt Chamberlain, whatever you Google it, depending on the time you watch it. Who was the best three-pointer? Now Steph is the best three-pointer. Who was the best with assists? And who was the best as far as rebound? You might say Rodman or some other person. Who was the best this or that? Yet at the same time, who was considered the GOAT?
Michael Jordan.
Michael Jordan, right? So in my thought process, I was like, well, I do everything at a B+ average like Michael Jordan. I could do it. But one thing I noticed that when Mike went to football or if he went to baseball, he wasn't Michael Jordan. If he went bowling, he wouldn't be Michael Jordan. When he did golf, he wasn't Michael Jordan. You know what I'm saying? So one thing I found out is that everything that he was they considered him the GOAT was all in basketball. I was like, okay, so let me cut off some of these things that I'm gifted at. Let me cut off some of these things that I do at a B+, A- average. And I was like, okay, let me focus on in this zone of genius. And this is what I teach about branding also. Because as humans, we are multifaceted. Yeah. Right? As humans, we can like multiple things. We talked about it earlier. I watch them cooking lobster on YouTube all the way to them in space, and what are the sizes of black holes and things of that nature, all the way to, okay, I'm looking at some trucking things, and then all the way to some branding stuff and course things. So I'm multifaceted. And music. Right. And music, multifaceted. Yet at the same time, as a brand, our brains don't compartmentalize that. If I'm thinking, I might think of the new Gail or the new Oprah or the podcast queen. I might think of you as the best interviewer. I might think of you if I see you on the fitness side. Like, my brain is going to automatically, it's word association. Yeah. So if I say hot, some people say cold. Some people might say dog. Some people might say summertime. What is that first thing that's what a brand is?
That's why I think you do it so well. Because featuring Jose, It really does. Like, I asked you before we even started, I was like, does that pay homage to like your old life? Because when you say you were interested in all these things, you guys have to understand that not only were you interested in all these things, you lived in all of these different lanes.
I did it.
And that's why I'm really excited to talk to you on the podcast because we're talking about like life transitions, career transitions. But when you look at Featuring Jose, I think that what you represent, you wouldn't be surprised to see you in the music lane. You wouldn't be surprised to see you, you know what I mean, like in the branding lane. You wouldn't, because I don't know. I think Featuring Jose, now it pays back to like you being on features, right? But then Black Man with a Spanish name also gives that levity. Like it just, I don't know. I think that you do a really good job of bringing all of those pieces to where you are now. But I really want to tap into the fact that you've lived several lives.
Definitely have lived several lives. It's crazy. Like we talk about the Featuring Jose. I was in the music industry. I was had a situation with Sony, signed, and then I was like, doing tours with Genuine on 3 of his albums. And one of the things I love, the passion of creating music. Like, remember I said, I'm going to do it in a way where it's going to be easy, where it could feel like $1 million. I was recording a lot of stuff. Even matter of fact, one of them we did in the studio, another one I did with Trina that we listened to earlier, I did that on my laptop with a $100 mic.
Really?
In GarageBand. Yet, again, it feels like this big production because you put the time in. And where did that come from? Me spending hours back on my old Windows PC taking Puff Daddy's No Way Out album and actually working with it, with the waves and listening to it in my headphones. So it's like all these different skill sets have brought forth into where it's like, okay, now we're going to execute. So and then again, back to the Feature Jose, it was just like, all right, you know what? My name was Jose Cinquentes. People say, where did Cinquentes come from? It's like, I made it up. I was in the shower one day and I was just like, I'll be freestyling like Cinquentes.
And I never had, I never had the courage. I never had the inkling to ask you that.
Oh,
but intuitively, I'm like, Cinquentes, I've never heard
like, what does it even mean? I was like, I don't know. And then I had some people who was like, well, it means this. It means 100 plus. Or that. And I was like, I made it up.
But because I've never heard anyone with that last name. But so you said all these skill sets, right? And you touched on the music industry. Let's go all the way back. Right? You said you wanted to be in comic books. But I'm curious, as a child, which was the first skill set that you learned you had, or that your family or someone was like,
it was the music one.
Okay, so when you're growing up and they're like, oh, my baby's going to be a singer.
Yeah, my dad, it was a music. My mom sang. All of my uncles, they were in the bands together. It was always going to be music. Always, I played the sax, drums. I played the piano. My dad played the guitar. It was always going to be music.
So in your family, what was the idea of success? Was it to do music full time or do it part time and then have like a job? What was your idea?
The idea of success, to be honest with you, and this is something that I'm even still working with or recognizing, was peace. There wasn't like, oh, we're going to do for the $1 million or the 6 figures. They just wanted us happy. You know what I'm saying? They wanted us safe. Like, it wasn't like, it was like, do what you wanted to do, but it wasn't like, we were after a specific goal other than peace, other than, even in church, like we were making sure that it was definitely grounded. I use my dad as a perfect example. He had probably the perfect embodiment of a Christian walk that I've ever seen. Never seen him cuss. He didn't drink. Like, he didn't get loud or anything like that. He just did his music. He stayed to himself. And, he was just loving to the people. And I seen that. I was like, okay, cool. Played in the band, played with his brothers, created albums and things of that nature. And I was like, okay, cool. And so our whole family, though, was like, okay, you're going to be in the music space. Whether it's piano lessons, playing by ear, learning by ear. It was just like we were going to be in the music space. And then I came across my first album. I think it was an LL Cool J joint that I had bought. And I think it was called 6 Minutes of Funk. I don't know. Y'all gonna be like, all right, Jose, you need to Google it. It was 6 Minutes of Funk or something like that. But the reason why I bought it though, because I was like, oh, this is a great price. And I thought it said 60 minutes. So
6 minutes.
But I think it was like 6 minutes. I don't want to Google this right now, but it was literally, I'm thinking to myself, 60 minutes, and it was like $4. And I was like, oh, I'm buying this 60 minutes for $4. I'm buying it. I was a little kid. So I bought it. And I was like, oh, this thing only 6 minutes. I look at the thing. I was like, oh. But anywho, it was LL. And then I found, I was listening to like Rakim and then Nas. Nas was the one who changed my life in regards to this music thing. And that's when I was like, all right, you know what? I'm going to do it. Because I heard his voice. I heard like the cadence. It was just like amazing to my ear to the point where I would take down his lyrics, right? Because I was good. But I was like, nah, I need to get to this level. I would write down all of his lyrics. And every time that he would stop at the stanza or he would stop at the rhyme word, I was like, okay, that's the next one. And I would look at the structure. Then I would fit my own words in there. So I would literally copy the framework, then make it my own. So I would copy that framework, write it down. Then I was like, I'm going to fit my own words in there, practice. And then I started to say, okay, boom, this is my own. Right. And the crazy part, this is how I do with virtually anything. But Nas is the best only because I named my son after him. His daughter was named Destiny. I named my daughter Destiny.
Really?
Like, yeah, he still is as far as like the GOAT for me.
Facts. And now you're the GOAT. So
definitely am.
And I don't want people to miss that. And it's really actually, it's simple. You simplify things in like the way that we process and we can come into our own brand.
Right.
But you said you found his style.
Yep.
You created a template from his style.
Yep.
You inserted yourself and then eventually you had your own style. So
Yep.
when did you find your voice? And then what was that voice?
I found my voice. Well, I'm still finding it, to be honest with you. But as far as those initial sparks, I'm going to be honest. As I went through this process of finding myself, I really didn't find my voice till like 11th grade. And the main reason that is because my parents, again, remember, there was no real like goal of success. It was just peace. And we were kind of sheltered, but not to the point where it was really restrictive. She taught us to be gentlemen, taught us to be respectful of our elders, right? And so I was sheltered. So when I went to school, I was considered maybe a nerd or a geek or anything like that. Let's call it that. But I think those are cool. But whatever that thing is, you feel like, you know, you're not in society all the way. That's what I was.
Yeah, you say you think that's cool. I think that some nerds, like even Urkel and things like that, they're not necessarily not cool.
Right.
I feel like there are lame characteristics, but just because you're a nerd doesn't necessarily make you lame.
Right, exactly. I definitely had lame characteristics. I never forget. In 9th grade, I had some famous footwear Nikes. Again, nothing wrong with famous footwear Nikes. Definitely famous footwear. Or Nike want to cut a check for the Work and Play podcast. We are here.
There you go.
But they were all white. I had on some Stonewall shorts. You know, I had on some white socks and I had a Chaps polo. Shout out to Chaps polo, Ralph Lauren Chaps. It was black, but it was a little ashy because I washed it too many times, right? 9th grade, nobody was messing with me. I worked my way through the ranks. Came summertime of sophomore into junior year. That's when I found it. And then here's the crazy part though. Yeah, you're getting some good stuff right now. I love to be vulnerable and self-aware. My brother came in, he's roughly 2 years younger than me. He came in as a freshman, right? I'm in the 11th grade and they were like, oh, and my government name is Joseph. They was like, oh, that's Joe brother. So he didn't have to work through the ranks. I worked through the ranks and I think I have a high level of resentment even to this day for that.
Because it's easier for him.
So much easier for him. Dang. Like literally he just came in and got the ride off my coattails like, oh, that's Joe brother.
But that's the beauty of being an older brother though. No. And so here's the thing, because like you said you found your voice at 11th grade and I'm sitting here like that's early for you to like have the first spark, right? And then also for you to be an older brother and then also like have an impact on his life. I'm assuming
it's still a touch. Still touchy.
I can feel it. Listen,
that was hard for me.
We love you. Hey. But the voice that you found, what was on your mind? Because for you to say like you resented kind of like, you know, having your younger brother come through, it doesn't necessarily sound like you took pride in that older brother image.
Oh yeah, no, I actually, and I'm still working through this right now. I'm big on, as far as your mental wealth. I'm big on self-awareness, understanding who you are. Right. And see, these are things that why we're talking about, I'm working through right now because I always felt like I was the only child. And I had two older sisters, from my dad. And then I had a younger brother, which we had the same mom and dad, but I felt like an only child.
Really?
Like I didn't, but even when I was growing up, I didn't like really play with toys and stuff. I would watch like the video music box or the jukebox network. I watch MTV and things of that nature. Didn't really play with toys and stuff. So that's what I'm saying. Like I was in a space, but at the same time, it really felt like I was alone.
Got you.
Right. And that's why I said now I had blossomed. By the 11th grade, I was getting attention and they was like, oh, he's cool or he the rapper. I ain't playing no sports or nothing. I was just the cool dude.
That's cool.
But I was cool with everybody on both sides. Like you said, if they were that ones who were shunned by society all the way to the cool, I just was being able to move in all sides of the room.
Yeah.
You know,
okay.
And it just became that.
That's dope. Well, it's safe to say if I were sitting with your brother, he could possibly say that you were a bit of a guide or you cleared the path a bit for him.
I would say so. Yeah.
But for you, because you felt like you grew up and you were more like you embodied more of an only child, 11th grade is at the point where we start thinking about like what we want to do. Like at least somebody's asking, you going to college? Yeah. So for you, you know, if you were kind of a mentor, you know, from that perspective, who was guiding you or who was guiding you? And then what was that thing that you thought you were going to do when you graduated from high school?
That's the crazy part. Even as I look back, I didn't really have no guidance. So how did you decide? Almost like we're going to try, we're going to fail.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I still wasn't like jumping out the window.
Okay.
I wasn't like even this life that I live now, like I'm big on the thing that I see that is uncomfortable. I jump into it immediately, like head first. Well, not really head first, but full body. You know what I'm saying? I think of it like a pool. You know what I'm saying? You know how, look, here we go real quick. Y'all know how y'all get into a pool, you try to stick your baby toe in, right? You're like,
you jumping in both feet.
Right. And so it go up to the leg, right? Yeah. And then it go to the thigh. And fellas, you know when it hit the other stuff. And then it hit the back. You know what I'm saying? And you jump in. And then by the time you get in, you feel comfortable.
Yeah.
When you could have got all of that done in 1 second.
Yeah.
So now that's how I actually do life. But back then, I was just this neutral, cool cat that it was just going with the flow to the point where even when I left, I did 2 years of college and I did this. It was a spot called Computer Learning Center. We was learning how to do like HTML and things of that nature. And that failed. Again, I was just trying stuff because people said, yo, you should try it.
Yeah.
But still at the same time, I knew it wasn't really for me.
Yeah.
I thought I was going to be doing the music and going on the road, being this big name and things of that nature. But I didn't really have guidance per se.
Facts.
It's just like, all right, cool. I see it. I saw it in a magazine. I heard this. I could try it. And here's the thing, because everything that I wanted to try came easy to me. It was easy to get into the different, the phases. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So that didn't really help if it was harder and I had a little bit more of a struggle, it probably would have made more sense to me. And it's like, okay, you know what? Now we got some guidance. But it was like, if I wanted to, like, yo, we about to go down the bobsled. You want bobsled with us? I was like, all right, you know what? I'm about to learn how to do it. Again, and I would have been good at it or above average in it. And so I was just one of those ones. And I think that I wasted time because of the level of talent that anything I jumped in.
Yeah, I was thinking about that because typically, like you say, when life tells you no, you're like, okay, well, I'll pivot. And I think that I resonate with that because there are times when I've just been down a path because I'm good at it. And then once life said you're not good at it, I'm like, okay, well, I guess I got to choose. But because you can go on and on and on and on without any no's, how did you decide, okay, I'm good. I'm going to do something else?
That's the thing. If it had to be at least burnout, because I didn't stop whatever I was doing. It just had to be burnout. And I was just like, all right, I'm going to find what it is. And here's the thing about it too. I think that I would keep trying different things because I didn't have like a strong hustle. Everything was handed to me. So even E.T. says it a lot, like the person who has more talent, more hustle, more grind is going to beat the one who has talent every day. Well, I had talent and everything was just like given to me. So I didn't really have to work. So what happens is, it's like, okay, well, I already know I'm going to be taken care of. Oh, I know this is going to happen. Oh, I know this is good. Like even the whole thing with the music, like it was kind of easy to get in and almost have this deal and this thing and get on tour. It was easy. because I said I wanted to do it.
And that's a lot of people's dreams.
Right. And I was just like, all right, cool. You know, long story less long. Yeah. At the end, I was just like, all right, I'm good. I'm done. You know? But I think, and again, this is good. This is revelation because, again, I need to talk to the therapist about it. It's like,
facts, yeah.
Because so much of it was handed to me on a platter, and because after me trying it, and I was so good at just multiple different things and multifaceted, I think that was a hindrance for me.
I feel you.
Yeah.
Speaking about self-awareness, I tend to I struggle with, so I'm resonating with you. So the reason I say that is because I will often liken myself to a frog in boiling water, and I will jump in, right? And I know that it's getting hot up in here, but I'm like, I'm good. And I will say I'm blessed to have the intuition to jump out before, because the frog will die, not realizing that the temperature's going up. Yep. I realize the temperature's going up, but I'm like, okay, now it's time for me to get about it. Right. Speaking of self-awareness, I think that burnout teaches us about our life, especially when we don't have guidance. Right. Would you mind going into because I'm assuming you hit burnout in the music industry, you hit burnout in creativity, you hit burnout in, you said HTML, we definitely gotta get that's the furthest thing from the creativity. Right. So if any one of those lanes, would you mind sharing a story of what was it like for you to experience that burnout, and would you characterize it like that frog sitting in a, boiling water?
I think in regards to burnout, the only one I could really, really feel was in college. And the main reason, and I wouldn't even say it was full on burnout. It was a combination of burnout and then me looking at the world. So I use as a perfect example. I went for business administration, and I was in school, and I would ask the professor, because I was already doing the work and it was these books, and I was just like, we're not doing business, we're learning about business. And then one day I remember I asked the professor, I was like, do you have a business? He was like, nah. So have you had a business? He was like, nah. I was like, ever since then I shut down. So I was like, why am I reading these books, and why am I in this space when I'm like, okay, I need to be out there? And that was one of those ones where I was like, okay, yeah, college is not for me. That's when I left. That was the biggest thing in regards to that. If I would think about the burnout, because we're taking classes, and the crazy part, I don't even remember as far as the classes, the teachers, what I learned, anything. It's almost like, you know how you would have a negative situation in your life, and what they say, repress memories and things. And it's almost like that to a point where it's kind of foggy. And I did it for 2 years.
I was going to ask you about it. So, then the question, you can tell me if you remember or not, because I do know what you mean by repressing memories. Because I'm thinking about because when we are in those experiences, and you valid. You have the thoughts I'm not learning what I want to learn, right? And your attention starts to shift. Life is still happening, right? So your grades might have been affected. Your relationships in school might have been affected. Yep. And that's the part that I'm really curious about. What was happening?
But see, that's the crazy part. My grades was always good. So I use it as a perfect example. Remember I said everything was handed to me?
That's great. Yeah, it sounds like you don't have no indicators,
Look, I promise you, it was life was just so easy and neutral, let's say that, that I didn't really feel pain or struggle until I turned 21 when I had my son, right? So even before then, let's say he was in high school, I took myself. I'm talking about not a pen, not a paper, not a book, not a book bag, nothing, because I knew it was going to be provided for me. I still graduated with a 3.83. Everything was provided. No. This is high school. Yeah. In college, I was still in the threes. It was like a 3.2 as far as in college. Gotcha. But it was still it came easy to me, taking the test and things of that nature. Cause I felt like I was always thinking beyond. I mean, for real, if I had applied myself for real, easy in the 4.0s type deal. Yeah. But I promise you, even like I said, in school, I knew everything was going to be provided for me. I was like, I'm going to look at her book. You know what I'm saying? She's going to provide me with a pencil, give me a piece of paper, something, this, that, and third. Matter of fact, when I finish taking my notes, I need you to bring this to me tomorrow. So she'll put it in there. Again, it was just using the brand.
Yeah.
right? Using the brand of who I was to be able to get what I wanted and what I needed. And that's the crazy part. I never thought about that until right now.
I love when that happens. I love when that happens. Okay, I was literally going there though, because you said that your brand was like keeping you through. What? Now that you look back at it, right? What was the brand that carried you through these situations?
So my brand was always going to be somebody who was always going to add value, and this is I guess a gift and a curse, a good and a bad. As you look at it, is every person I came in contact with, I made them feel like they were the most important person on earth. So, right? So now this could be male, female, what have you. It just so happens that, I'm heterosexual. So it would come off maybe even more with young ladies. So with that being said, there was a high level of,
the top 3 responses that I get when I ask, why do you want to leave corporate America, are that you want financial freedom, you want to own your own time, and you want to build a legacy for this generation and generations to come. Now, this is not a solo job. In order to transition from your 9-to-5 into entrepreneurship, it's going to take community and it's going to take resources. And I've created the community of pioneers who are going to wrap around you and help you make that transition successfully. So if you're interested in leaving your job, go ahead and click that information below. Let's get into the community and let's transition from your 9-to-5 into entrepreneurship successfully. Now let's get back to the episode.
Relationships, non-relationships, situationships, and things of that nature. Not to say I was out here being promiscuous, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, entertained. And I found out, because of certain stuff that happened when I was a kid, that I had a codependency also for women.
Yeah.
So this was feeding the codependency, feeding as far as the ego. It was already a gift. It was innate. It was natural. Boom. But that same thing, like I said, it don't matter who you were. If you were in front of me, I made you feel like you were the most important. I took that when I went into sales. I was always number one as far as in sales within, like even if in Verizon, it was like top 5 in the country. We're talking about 25,000 people. I was like every month top 5. Again, not trying. Just being known. If I went hard, but again, it's the same thing, because even in the sales space, every person in front of me, I made them feel like they were the most important person to me at that moment.
Yeah.
But backlash could come from, definitely in relationships, like, I like this feeling. Yeah. If you take away this feeling from me, there's going to be a problem. And I ran through that a lot of times.
I can imagine.
Yes.
So the brand that you were aware of slightly was the fact that you can make people feel like special.
Yes.
And that is what carries you through a lot of situations, like navigating relationships. Did it also show up with like professors and like business relationships afterwards? I know customers definitely love to feel special.
Yeah. I mean, so you got to think, at the time too, I was in and out as far as the music industry. I was working jobs. I worked at Circuit City, for those who remember Circuit City, where it was 100% commission. So your mouth, your mouth was, or who you are was your check. So again, it was amazing, right? Yeah. And then they let us go because we were making too much money. Again, that was another thing. But in regards to business, because the only business I had was 9-to-5 business, right? So managers, again, they love me. And because of who I was, again, I would be afforded different luxuries. Like I could take a 2-hour lunch. But other people who wanted to do the same thing was like, well, Jose doing it. They would get rolled up or this, that, and again, they was always looking at, if you gave me a line, I might not have crossed it, but I'm going to lean over it. But because of who I was and what I brought to an organization or what I brought into individuals, they allowed it to slide.
I was kidding. Did that create any side eyes for you? Like, any like haters on the outside looking in? Like, why is that easy? Why is he?
Yes. And that's the simple answer. Most of them came from dudes, I call them non-sexual crushes. Right? And so what happens is we're going into a wholly, we ain't talking about branding courses or nothing.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's cool. This is what it is.
Yeah.
So what happens is they would have these non-sexual crushes and they would start out like, Jose, yo, you the man. I see how they love you. Da 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 da. What a whoop, what a whoop, what a whoop, what a whoop. Yet I know every time that they would do that, because it happened multiple times, and sometimes in high school too, but it would happen multiple times. And then if it was, let's say if it was a young lady, this was one of the easiest ways. They were like, okay, I'm gonna mess with her. Cause again, Jose had her, Jose was with her. Or let me try to be him and then I'm gonna talk, we call it, dirty macking on the back end. Or I'm gonna try to talk to Mac. And again, you couldn't knock though the brand. So every time you would try, it would kind of like smack you back in the face. Because again, I was being consistent in who I was. And I honestly and earnestly wanted everybody to win. Even the ones who hated me.
I asked you all these questions. And I know it feels like we going all the way out.
But
here's the thing. What I realized brought me success in corporate had nothing to do with my job, actually.
Right.
It was very much my personality, and it was very much my awareness of how I make people feel. Right. So hearing how this breaks down and how you develop this persona and being aware of how you make people feel, that really is the cornerstone that a lot of people don't have, at least that self-awareness. And it really does matter when you're trying to like navigate your career. Because people are the influence of your career. So that's the reason why it's so important. And I'm just really, really curious. Every time I think about a career, like a specific career oriented question, I'm like, oh yeah, but there's that. But specifically to like, your decisions, right? Because it sounds like at this point, you are making your own decisions. You're trying things without barriers or boundaries.
Because you got to think about it. Any barrier, boundary, or rule is set by people. And if somebody who's the gatekeeper of it, all you got to do is break down that gatekeeper like, okay, cool. We gained some rapport. Now I can go through anything. Anything and everything. Like,
well, while we talk about that, what is leading your career moves really still at the underlying of it is your decisions. So the first value that we talk about is peace, right? And we have to understand like a little bit about how that shows up in your decision making. But you mentioned like that little stint in like it sounds like computer science, right?
Computer science, business administration. It was always around business, but what happened is my cousin's husband was doing it and he was making good money. I was like, all right, cool.
That's where I wanted to go. Because while you're this very like self-aware person, creative, there's this detour that we take in this stability area, this money making area, like this traditional way that it takes to make good money. And that's where you go into corporate. So like if no one else was like influencing your decisions, why did you go to work for a corporation when you could really have done anything?
That was the gist, because again, I saw my cousin, he was like, I'm doing this, that, and the third. And I was like, all right, well, I can do it. I was good at it. But then at the same time, again, I'm looking at the numbers and I'm looking at the codes and stuff. And I was like, this ain't gonna work.
What do you mean?
Like when because we went to school for the computer science thing.
Got you. You're looking at the actual code.
Yeah, I'm looking at the actual code. You know what I'm saying? HTML code and the way that even I look at it now, I'd be like, this is, because you can see the back end of a website or something like that. And I've seen it just brings back those memories. And I was like, this is not going to work for me. There was no creativity in it. Remember, I was saying, I'm going to figure out the easiest way to do it. I'm going to think smarter, not harder. Right. So my mind is always thinking of how could we do this to the same result, but easier.
I got you.
So that was the biggest thing. And I think if we were talking about like the 9-to-5 space, that's why I had 17 years in retail, because I controlled the check. I controlled my time. I controlled the experience. I was doing face-to-face, hand-to-hand. And it didn't get into the later years where I went to management, where I was released from customers per se. But then now my employees were my customers. And then to the point where I was able to, in Verizon, to show like, I was always given like, again, how can we make this better? And then they would implement stuff 3 to 6 months later with legal. And then they created a job for me.
What was the job?
It was called a senior analyst of ops. This was just some name they had to put up.
Senior analyst of ops.
Yeah.
So you were operations guy.
No.
You just created the dog.
I was literally head of engagement within our area, within the higher management, the employees, and the customers. So basically, I helped create and implement our own internal social media. I would run little games and stuff like that we have in regards to that engagement. One of the things I talk about on multiple podcasts, if you ever still see now on IG where it says VZW in their name, one of the things that I implemented was we were trying to give somebody, like if you're a customer, you was like, you know what? Jose's my guy. He's my internal guy. I got an end guy at Verizon. And you would share, like information about Jose, or you could see what's going on in the store. So we would have them change their personal one to VZW or create a brand new one. And some of them still do it now to this day, but here's the thing, I ain't get the credit. My director had got the credit. It's cool. I implemented. I had so many different things that I implemented in regards to, again, it goes back to branding for this corporation. How do we break down the barriers with the upper management and the execs and middle management, and then as far as our employees, and then as far as our customers, to create this seamless transition to what? To first off, make sure the experience is good, but then gain more revenue. So then they created, that's it. That's when they created the job. I didn't have a store, had roughly 600 employees. All I had to do was drive from store to store, show face. You know what I'm saying? It was literally, it was literally in the space of just creativity.
I got you.
Because I've already showed it for so many years.
That's dope.
And then I was like, all right, cool. I'm outside of the four walls. I always knew it was something outside of that. And that's when
So before you, right, you spent 17 years.
Yep. In retail in general, 13 roughly at Verizon. Or was it 15? I don't know. I'd be missing it. I did 2 years at AT&T.
Okay.
3 to 4. Circuit City was first. Did 2 months at car sales.
Yeah. I know you don't like to talk about the resume, but I need something to like ground, because there's a lot that you have going on, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking about your career trajectory and everything that you have done that I know. I'm trying to understand, what was your resume like when you first went into the industry? Was it because you had a little bit of that computer science that you went into the telecommunications space? How did you pick telecommunications?
I think because initially, why did I end up? Oh, you know what's funny? Okay, I forgot about this. I worked at Thrifty Car Rental. And again, this was stifling because it was an easy job, but it was stifling. All we did was get brand new cars from out this distribution warehouse. They would pull the plastic off. Actually, that's where I met Jay Holiday. I was able to put Jay Holiday on because he worked at one of the distribution plants with me.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
So we wouldn't have.
I helped put him on. Y'all, you know. Anywho, so he used to pull the papers off. Yeah. I was a driver, or what they would say a porter. We took the new cars and we drove them to different Thrifty locations. Okay. So I was just driving all day. Yeah. Right? And so at the time, again, I'm going to figure out how this is when I initially met like Genuine. So I would literally, instead of driving the car over to where the other location, I would say I got lost. And I was sometimes getting lost. Like we didn't have like GPS and everything back there. It was bad. I promise you, I still get lost today. If it ain't for GPS, Lord. Anywho, so I was getting lost, but I would just drive to his house. So I would take these new cars over here, go visit this young lady, do this, pick up some food. Like I was doing things, but at the same time, I noticed that level of freedom. But again, there was no level of growth. Got it. So that's when I literally started at Circuit City, and Circuit City was not just telecom. It was like everything. It was like, it's like Best Buy. Yeah, yeah. You know what I'm saying? So
I'm not that young.
I mean, some people, they're like, what is that? I mean, like, don't worry about it. You're good. Best Buy. And so it was at that moment, that's when I had a taste of the commission life. Okay. You know, and it was like, okay, well, this gift that I had already built up, now I can get paid for it. Mm-hmm. And that was a tangible thing with it. I knew about the other stuff and you got a feeling, or people liked you and things of that nature. But now I got a check that said, hey, because of who you are, because of how you talk to somebody, this is what it is. And that's what I was telling somebody before. in regards to like brand, always got to bring it back to brand.
Mm-hmm.
Even at whether it was Circuit City, whether it was at Verizon, I would have people who will wait an hour or two for me. Now, mind you, if you look around the store, it's the same cell phones, it's the same accessories, it's the same car chargers, it's the same Bluetooth speakers that everybody else is selling, right? Mm-hmm. Same product. Yeah, somebody's saying, oh, I'm going to sit on this couch and I'm waiting for Jose. We good. Oh, matter of fact, I'm going to go grab something to eat. They're going to sit there, eat their Popeyes waiting for me to finish with another client. And then at the same time, let's say it was like, I was working side by side with you. They could probably go to you and spend a lot less. Yet at the same time, they will want to wait, spend more time, invest more time, and invest more money.
Because they know you're going to get the accessories, you're going to get.
Right, you're going to get everything. The experience, the value. And again, remember, it goes back to I made them feel like they were the most important people in the world.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about even in the branding space, right? Because a lot of times, well, you're doing what I do, or you're doing tour like me, or you're doing podcasts like me, you do your interviews are like me, or you're doing courses like me, or you're doing fitness like me. And I always say, who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve? And how are you different? So in a world, if I understand who I am, who do I serve? What do I do? And how am I different? Definitely the different piece. Every person who's in a similar lane to me, we already know I'm different. So instead of being competitors, they're actually collaborators. There's never going to be a competition because I understand what's my difference. I understand what's my separator, right? I understood what was my separator at Verizon. I remember before we had uniforms, I would have on a vest, tie. I was dressed up like I was a pastor. You know what I'm saying? Like I'm about to go preach. Because that was my separator. Yeah. Even when we had uniform, okay, cool. What was my separator? Right? You had to figure out who you were in that space. What made you different? Why would somebody want to wait 2 hours for you? Why would somebody say, no, I'm only dealing with Jose? Yeah. Why would somebody say, yo, I'm going to spend $1,000 when I could have spent $500? Right? You understand that. You go on. And here's the thing about it too. I'm big on repetition at a higher level. Mm-hmm. So you can overcome objections even more.
Because you've gone through them multiple times. And you already said this before. When you talk about branding, somebody can get caught up in like, what's different about me that's out there about other people. Yep. And I think what is awesome is you had a lot of life experience to like not get caught up in somebody else's life. You were the current instead of getting swept up into somebody else's current. But they say comparison is a thief of joy. So before you got to a place where you're like, I am the brand, right? What was the time, or have you ever experienced like that, negative backlash of comparing yourself to other people?
So I think it's human nature for us to do that. But the beauty is, and again, even now I teach this, I say, put on your hater goggles. They're like, why? I was like, as a hater, normally we look at it as like, girl, that dress, or you got a wrinkle in it, or your shoes are run over, or this, that, and the third. And the reason why we hate is because we feel like we could do something better. That one specific thing we hate on, we feel like we can do it better. So my whole thing is, I never had it in a space of looking at somebody comparison. I always felt like, yo, they put the same shoes on as me, their pants on one leg as me, they breathe the same air as me. Oh, I could do it. That was always my thought process. Remember, everything was handed to me. Everything that I said I was going to do, I was able to do it. I just didn't have, and I think if I had a little bit more opposition and adversity, I'll be further beyond where I'm at now. But I just didn't have it. It was just smooth sailing, right? That was just,
I gotta ask. So it's funny. So you, ET is a mentor of yours, mentor of yours. Yes. And I remember being at a speakers conference where even CJ spoke, and he was like, "You don't have to have this like homeless story and in order to tell your story, right?" Right. That has definitely been a thing for me, right? Right. And though you definitely had a smooth sailing in careers, I feel like life definitely bumps us down. Here's the thing. When I quit my job, the only struggle I feel like I really had was the person I dated. The life turned this way, lost a whole bunch of money. I was like, you know what, life, I guess you really taught me something, right? And it taught me
about myself in a negative way, whereas everything had been easy. That's the reason I asked, because you still get a story out of it. So what was that thing that knocked you down?
So here's the crazy part, though. You said that because CJ, he's literally my direct coach. And a lot of people say, I see he's like my direct coach, right? And I always say, dude, I'm gonna let you just go off into the sunset and let me run everything. But I didn't have the struggles. But when I had the struggles, they were on 1,000. So I use as a perfect example, 5 kids, 4 baby mamas, you know what I'm saying? My youngest daughter passed away from cancer at 5, right? I'm in a space now where I'm talking about losing it all. So what happens is, as I'm even getting into this personal development space and speaking, I could teach all day, but I couldn't tell stories. I was like, they were too tragic. Like it wasn't Jose. Okay. I always say I was a dirtbag. You got to think, my daughter who passed away, her mom was married at the time when we was dealing with each other. So I'm lying to this dude, did it in the third. And then the thing about it, when she was actually, and I was separated from her, and to see her in the hospital right before she died, he was the one who allowed me to see her. The same man who's supposed to, again, we talking about tragedy now.
Yeah.
So I'm like, how am I supposed to be teaching my courses of branding, and all these stories that I had was 1,000. Like, it wasn't like, I could just talk about it openly because it was people who were attached to it. E.T. stories like, I chose to be homeless. I chose to leave out. My dad wasn't there. Okay, he ain't there. So, of course, he ain't connected. But I'm like, these are real people who were connected to it. So I always thought tragedy. But then as I started I was like, there's stories everywhere. There's principles and practical applications everywhere, and it doesn't have to be as far as tragic. Like everything, this, even just setting it up, right, could be something. It's like, okay, we did preparation before coming in here. Even if we got here, we got different things that's going on with the lights and the sunlight coming in. But at the same time, what is it within your brand that you've been preparing for, but you're not ready for the pivot? Or are your bases covered? So if something was to go wrong, like we got 3 cameras set up, right? It's like, these are stories. Yeah. Something that's just tangible right here. We can get practical applications for in regards to business and branding that most people just don't recognize. And I didn't. So now I'm the king of it.
I love, how I can tell now, I realize, because you start with something that happened to you yesterday. Yes. You'll tell a story about something that happened to you yesterday. Yep. And storytelling is one of those things that I've been thinking about, like developing similar. Like if I told you a story, you would be like, whoa, how does this, you know? But I hear you tangibly testing that out as you talk about stories about stuff that happened to you yesterday. So that's really dope. I think because it was a big Achilles heel of mine. Ooh. I could not. Again, the only thing I could think of was tragic. You got to think, before that, it was easy selling. 2-parent household, you know what I'm saying? I mean, there was some other stuff that happened, but I could never talk about that. But, for the most part, it was amazing life. Yeah. Then it was just like, it went from good to horribly bad. And so, again, like I said, I could teach all day, but I could not attach those stories to it. So I was just like, I'm going to teach. But then I would watch E, I would watch C, and he was like, okay, well, even use a movie comparison. Let's use that. And then I was like life is always happening we could learn from. So speaking of stories, how did you start Deeper Than the Brand?
Well, Deeper Than the Brand was formerly Beast Mode Digital. And it initially started off, I always tell the story how I even met E.T. and met Nikki at this brunch. Right. So what happened is, long story less long, my boy hit me up and was like, yo, you know about this dude named E.T.? And I was like, yo, the dude that yelled? He was like, yeah, that's him. I was like, okay, bet. He was like, yo, he got a brunch coming in Maryland. You should come through. And I was like, bet. You know what I'm saying? I was like, how much it costs? He was like, it's free. I like, free? That'll work. Right. And so I was like, yo, it's got to be some stipulations, because I knew what VIP cost. I knew what the actual events cost as far as to get there. And he was like, nah, you just got to be part of his community called Breathe University. Okay. And I was like, bet, how much Breathe University? He was like, $19.99. I was like, I could swing that. Is it month to month? He was like, yep. I said, bet. Signed up, got my 2 shirts, went to the house. E.T. was there, probably 30 other people. Dave Shands was there. First time meeting him. Nikki was there. Like, Nikki Saunders. This is Nikki for those who don't know. Like a whole host of people who I end up having these great relationships with. And I started shooting pictures. And again, long story, even lesser long. What happened was, most of my photos and videos was on his site, right? Wasn't getting paid or anything like that, but it was just like, oh, it was an opportunity. So it was on Breathe University, it was on his website, things of that nature. Nikki was at the same time doing mashup videos where she was doing it and sending it off to the people who were doing social media and things of that nature. So it ended up being really dope. And then we got together, we would do within Breathe University social media calls every Wednesday and just teach about social media and branding. And this was when I was really honing in my skills of presenting virtually before the pandemic. And I was just like, okay, because we were doing it at a consistent level and I was going in. I was like, all right, cool. And then that's where we came together with our guy, Isaiah, and formerly my sister, Sierra. She works with Marquell Western. Okay. And it was us four. We created Beast Mode Digital. And that was where it all started. And again, handling the brand of ET, which we were already doing. And then now handling these other speakers, authors, and coaches. But we were just shooting video, photo and video and things of that nature, social media. And then it got to the point where I had lost the passion for the photo and video, right? Even though that's not the question you asked. I had lost the passion and I would get to the more of the coaching space for speakers, authors, and coaches because I saw my coach. I use as a perfect example. I was at New York. We were at Ignite the Dream, which was Inky, Toby, CJ, and I was backstage. I had finished shooting. We were on a break and a guy had asked me about his brand or something. And I was going in, teaching, going in. And it was this dude there. His name is Joe Nice. Shout out to Joe Nice if you're watching. You know what I'm saying? Joe was listening and he had a notebook. And so he was taking notes and I could see him in my peripheral and kind of hear him. And after I finished, he was like, yo, I'm shocked. I'm surprised. I said, why? He said, dude, you just gave that much information. I got 2.5 page notes. I was like, again, I'm not understanding why. He was like, yo, you the video guy. I was like, oh. So what I noticed, even in this space, when I had a camera in front of me, I was invisible. But when I stepped in front of the camera, now you saw my gift, which is crazy. Like, it's literally even people I'm in business with and dealing with, it's like, yo, you dope. I was like, yo, I met you 8 times before. 8 times. I know how you move, how you shake, how you did, how you this, that, and the third, who you talk. And see, this is why I be telling people too, you got to understand, it's like scripture in Hebrews, not knowing who you're entertaining, because you can be like amongst angels or something like that. I'm sorry for butchering it. Again, I could look it up right now, but anywho, what happens is I've watched the ET, I've watched Inky Johnson, who they will come into a room and they shaking hands with everybody if they possibly can and introducing themselves. Yet there I've seen have been people who, let's say, not as notoriety. Right. And they're only going to talk to the talent or the other ones. They're not going to have the conversation with the photo video team or the help or the people who are passing out the hors d'oeuvres or the person who's in the back or the cook, the people who's making the thing run in the background. And I would sit there and watch. It gave me a bird's eye view, though, being invisible, because I was able to be in the room like a fly on the wall and see or have those conversations. So people, even at the time, some of the times I wasn't getting paid, I look at it like, oh, I didn't receive the $100 million worth of gain because I've been in those rooms with somebody who paid $20,000, $30,000. I've been in those rooms or on the phone calls with people who were paid $10K just to be able, you know what I'm saying? I'm in there and getting it firsthand. Yeah. So again, on one hand, yes, you become invisible, but on the other hand, you can use it to your benefit. But again, but that was that thing where it was like, okay, yeah, this is what I need to be doing. And this is probably what I need to be releasing also.
That's amazing. I'm like super floored. And I think that what rounds it all out to really like where I'm at right now and listening to your story, everything that led up to where you are today, from a technical perspective, to me makes sense. From videography to coding to sales, like these skills, right? Yep. And then spiritually, like you've been led and guided without boundaries, without parameters that a lot of people have experienced.
Yep.
And I think that you're a spiritual man. So like there's a part of like the essence of like how you do things that just make you the one that's supposed to do it. Right.
Yeah.
And I can see that from a brand, like a practical branding perspective, how that definitely puts you in a lane. So now that you're coaching people and you're teaching people, how do you put all of this down into bite-sized chunks so that someone can learn how to do it? Not in a showy brand, because it's deeper than the brand, right? Not in a showy brand way, but in a way that consolidates 20 years of you living and observing into like however long your coaching is so that they can show up authentically. And how do you break that down and coach people?
So it's not really a formula per se. Now, I do use the hierarchy. Remember, I was saying, who are you? What do you do? Who do you serve? And how you differ? But that's the extreme tip of the iceberg. I'm like, when I'm doing coaching, definitely one-on-one space, I am literally being like a surgeon. So we're going to keep in what we need. We're going to pull out what we don't, right? And everybody is different. And this is just my belief factor. If you are somebody who is doing a cookie cutter service for everybody, then you're doing a disservice, right? So now, does that help scale? No. But at the same time, remember, I always feel that person who's in front of me is the most important person to me at that moment. So it is one of those things where almost like a therapist, right? Therapists who could have 20 years of knowledge, but at the same time, they're asking you questions. And more often than not, you already know the answer. It's just somebody pulling it
out of you. Ooh, right. I can feel it. I can feel it. Okay, I got you. Yeah. That's dope. I can see where the value is. And like, okay, got you. So then that makes it easy.
Because nobody know you better than you. You just need somebody to help get in there, pull that, and you like, oh, I didn't even know that when I was a kid, and this, that, and third, and
that's magic. So then,
and here's the thing too, real quick.
Yeah.
It's so much like, even what you're doing right now, it's so much like therapy because I always say, I don't know if you got any scars on your knees.
Couple.
When did they happen?
When I was like 9, rolling down a doggone hill.
I got one right here. I was 7, messed it up. But those new scars when you were an adult, they heal pretty good. They're gone. They're just gone. But that same thing happens with the physical scars, our mental scars, right? So as a kid, we don't even know we have these deep gash mental scars that are in there. So on the therapy side, yes, we're pulling that out, but I'm doing that exact same thing with the brain.
Absolutely.
What makes you tick and what makes you move? Why do you think the way you do? And then how do other people see you? And we just put it out there like that. Yeah.
I'm starting to understand, like, this is very much like how I career coach, because I'm often saying, like, you need to go to therapy as we like pull stuff up. So do you recommend?
Oh, yes.
Is that a real thing? I'm developing my brand, but I also got to go to the therapist.
There's a couple ones that we're going to have to get some sponsorships for you, whatever, that I'm using right now. That's actually pretty dope.
That's amazing.
That's pretty dope.
Yeah. Mental health, I have a whole database. I would love to, like, mental health professionals are a huge partner to this work. Like, whatever you're coaching someone through, now that I understand it a little bit, only in this like little moment of a conversation. So as a coach, obviously the value is in you, like the whole experience, right? So bringing this to a course, I feel like that's the bulk of the value. And then the course part is the technical piece. How do you differentiate?
Yeah. So I always say your brand does the heavy lifting and it is the foundation. Course just is a product. So it could be a course, a program, a workshop, a book, an ebook, your speaking engagements. All that doesn't really matter. I just focus more on courses because now you can create transformation, not just for yourself, but for a larger number of people. My goal is always to impact those who impact the world. But going back to, like I said, as far as like the foundation, I almost think about when my first house was built, right? And so you got the land, you go see the land and everything like that. You're like, okay, the land is dope. You take your pictures. They got the little signs out, couple little rods sticking out the ground. Cool. Then what did they do after that? They got to dig the basement. So they dig, lay the concrete, put the pipes up, and then they cover up the basement, get to that level. But here's the crazy part. You did all that work, right? You did those months and that labor, but we started at zero in most people's minds. If you drive right by, it look like you ain't did nothing. That's what we're doing in regards to brand. Branding is getting to the foundation. That's what holds up the building. That's what holds up the house. That's what you can put anything on top of it after we get the foundation, right? Right. But a lot of times people don't see it or think it's needed because, again, it starts back at zero. After we dig deep, we started back at zero. But they'll see the course. They'll see the book. They'll see the ebook. They'll see, the webinar, the challenge. They'll see that because that's what's on top.
Yeah.
I deal with that underneath, and everything else is easy on top.
Do you ever do just coursework and none of the coaching, or do
no?
It has to come with?
It has to come with.
I cannot imagine.
My name is attached to it, so it has to.
Because that's basically like building a house on a faulty
yeah, exactly. And think about it. Once I get the brand right, the course, like everybody I've dealt with did 6 figures within 11 months. If the brand is not right, we ain't doing that. I got 6 or 7 of them that's over $1 million. If the brand was not right, we're not doing that. Like, again, it's a byproduct where your brand does the heavy lifting and you literally just putting those things on top of it and people will rock with you. I could start saying, hey, you know what? I'm about to start teaching about drywall tomorrow. Same me. Start teaching about, be like, deeper in the drywall, you know what I'm saying? Like in the back, people will rock with me because of me and the value that I've added. And be like, you know what? I'm doing this, but I might need to go ahead and do some drywall. Either I'm gonna teach you how to do drywall, what you need drywall in your house, or you're going to be a middleman as a drywall broker. Right. Again, it's the brand that does all of the heavy lifting.
Right.
That's the foundation.
I would say a move like that would have a person like, I love the way he teaches, I'm going to do it.
Right.
But it sounds like a move like that would also be you testing out your own brand.
There it is.
And I would say if you were to coach somebody, you would say, now, do you know enough people in this space that you've helped in the drywall space to go out there?
How many people have you helped?
Yes.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. So, I was thinking about the struggle. Like, people might look at you and they think of the transformation like $30,000 to build a course. I can't afford it, right? And I think that it's easy to give that excuse to be like, okay, well, I can't invest it because I'm not on that level. So people on that level need to do it. But the transformation that you offer sounds like it's for any human who wants to be out here doing their thing, right? So like, what, if you could, describe the transformation, like at a high level, right? Because, people at new and aspiring entrepreneur level, we all transforming on this level. But what's the transformation that you've been able to like witness as you've coached someone from like start to finish in their course?
I'm gonna step back just a little bit. So we used the 30 number, right? And I know there was even one point in my life I could never even fathom either charging or spending. Fathom. But what happens is we start somewhere, right? And so the level of investment, with its time, resources, money, we will have to always up the ante, like always, to the point where I think I was having a conversation with you or somebody, but I was like, I paid for a mentorship, which normally I was able to get in based off of my name, meaning that the level of investment of my name, my time, my resources paid for this. I tried it with money and it felt the same. Right. So for those who even in the space, like I'm saying truly you can. I don't work with everybody anyway, but truly you can. But even if you quote unquote physically can't, practically can't, there's so much game that I even give out also that, okay, you know what? Let me take these rules and move. That's where we go into the transformation, because I was in a space when I was married and had issues as far as with taxes, and my ex-wife, my grandma had died, and she was like, all right, I need you to front and take some of these bills. And then literally Uncle Sam come and say, hey, come here and do a garnishment. And then at the same time, you looking for a lifeline. Right. And so what happens is a course, a program, a brand, somebody who is a personal brand, they are a lifeline for somebody. right? So somebody might have their last 2,000 like, yo, I'm on a hope and a wish and a prayer. I have nothing else. And what happens is if you don't provide, right, we're talking about, which I've seen, where it's a broken marriage, broken as far as the kids, and then the kids take that thing to school and it stems and it goes further and further and further. The marriage broken, and then you take that toxic and that baggage to another relationship and it just goes further and further. So every person who was attached to that one thing that could have been a solution creates negativity. But let's take it on the flip side. So now I create something where somebody's at their last and we create results, or we create transformation, we create impact. And now we're talking about the family staying together. Now we're talking about they're happy, and every person they come in contact with, they're being a light. And it started with what? Just your product and your brand. They always say, well, if the ocean was still, one drop of water would cause tidal waves at the shores. Because what happens is a lot of people don't understand how strong that their seed is. Right. And that seed could be, of course, that seed could be you going live. That seed could be your podcast. And a lot of people was like, yo, I'm scared, or I'm introverted, I'm this, that, and the third. Yet it's some person on the other side of this camera, or some person on the other side of Spotify who's listening, or Apple was listening. And he was like, yo, I needed to hear that message. That thing now impacts them to change and transform, where to the point now their relationship's better, and it stems to their kids. And now they feel like, you know what, I'm about to go call my mom, who I've had a broken relationship, or my father. And then that leads into, it's like a trickle down effect. Because I've seen it where somebody, let's use even more practical. Somebody, you wake up and you with your husband and wife and y'all argue for whatever reason for something that happened 2 weeks ago. Y'all beefing, and you go down and make breakfast. You're like, I don't even want to eat nothing. Now you mad and even more heated. Send a text like, you could have da-da-da-da. You driving to work and you get in a car accident. You paralyzed, or worse, you die. All started from a seed. And all it takes is just a flip on the other side to now we're talking about not just to you, but to legacy, to your kids, the kids that ain't even existent yet. All because of what? And so that's what I do for a course.
That's amazing.
To the point where I told one of my guys, I said, to be honest with you, you cool. But I do this. The reason why we meet up, the reason why we're creating this thing is for the end user, for the student. It's literally for the student. That's it.
I feel you on that, but actually, I'm curious about the person who has a course inside of them and they have to pull it out. Okay. And how they go from maybe just a negative toxic seed to, as a person, being a positive seed who can create that's the way I see it. Like, they go from a negative seed to a good seed, and now they create another seed for somebody else.
So my biggest thing, how do we get those people? Like, I'm big on, again, we talked about it, but whoever you help. First off, your course begins when you help somebody else. Not because of information you gain. Information is free. Information is everywhere. People don't pay for information. They pay for organization, application, transformation. Hands down. I could get on the podcast and listen to it live or whatever. So whoever you help, I always use the example. My hip started actually acting up again. I'm old in these streets, but my hip started acting up. I started walking, but I had messed my hip up some time ago. And again, I went on YouTube and I'm finding out how to fix it. I'm doing some different moves and and I fixed my hip. After 2-3 weeks of intense study and intense work, I fixed my hip. Am I able to do a course about that? What do you think? No, because you haven't helped other people do it. There it is. Because you've helped yourself. So I always say yes and no. If I've helped other people with my framework to fix their hips, and we got levels of success, because I always say your promises are within the average. Right? Your promises in the average. So this person got the success in 5 weeks. This person got it in 5 days. This one got it in 2 days. This one got my average somewhere within a week. Or what have you. So I'm a promise, not guarantee, promise you, because this is my framework and I had a lot of people say, yo, we teach you how to make 6 figures. How many people you made 6 figures? Oh, just me. Oh, I'll take it another step. I'm gonna teach you how to make 6 figures. How many people? Oh, never, not even myself. That's another thing. So I'm always first off, before anything, who have you helped? right? And if you have not, we need to start helping people. That at the time we're helping people, we could be building out as far as our course. Main reason we're selling it to people. Why wouldn't we help other people?
Yeah.
We're going to sell it to other people. It don't make no sense. So let's help other people, because each one of those persons will represent 100, 1,000 different individuals. So if I help 3 people, those individuals could be representing the 3 million people that I'm going to help, because their pain, their situations, their hurdles, their obstacles, I've never dealt with it, but I have a solution for it. And if you've never dealt with it, how can you talk about it if you haven't helped somebody else go through it? So we start there.
I love it. And then it goes from there.
Yeah. Then we work on what's the actual promise. Remember I said the promise is in the average of the people you've helped. Like, what are they walking away with? Not this fairy tale blueprint of saying, oh, you're just going to be able to. No. What is the actual, tangible, quantifiable results that you're promising this person once they go through your process? Boom. Then from there, we do a brain dump. Brain dump, I call it unadulterated brain dump, where we're just talking about each and everything that you could possibly think of. We put it on Post-its, we put it in Google Drives, and it's just like, I want you to think about the good, bad, and indifferent about the promise or this thing we're talking about. Then what we're doing is we're getting the pain, right? I'm big on pain. We're going to get the pain from our previous students, and we're putting it in there before we even create the outline. Like, I'm literally saying, all right, what was the hurdles? What was the situations? What was the things? What was the roadblocks? Okay, cool. I'll make sure we get those in there. We're going to make sure we hit it in. Then we work on as far as the outline, right? Go through the outline. I call it the Bible, because we got to make sure this thing's right. It takes the longest doing this process. We're after working on the outline. Then we work on as far as shooting it. And a lot of people say, oh, you shoot courses. It's like, shooting is a day. And cameras are on tripods. Not really shooting a course. It's a day. The whole process is beforehand, the building out the outline, the promise, right? So we got the shooting, then we got the editing, and then we have as far as like pre-sale and launch. Now, here's another thing about that. I've had so many of my clients that are anxious about their launch date. Anxious, like, and I always say it's a difference between a wedding date and a marriage. So again, you might have a bride who's anxious about that date, but truly that date represents day one
of the marriage.
The launch date of the course is day one. I always say anything I create is 12 years to forever. Like, this ain't a hit it and quit it type deal. We're in this, you know what I'm saying? We in this, right? We're building this thing out, and it's not about a launch date. And I've had people like, oh, I didn't hit the numbers but at the same time, now they start to see, oh, today we made $20,000 because we sold 20 of the units, or we did this, that, you know what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, we couldn't get that on the date. Because again, we didn't have the awareness. We didn't have the full on know, like, and trust factor. And at the same time, we're building out the brand. We worked on the foundation, but we're still getting new people to understand what's going on in the brand. So at the same time, we're building out a course too. We're making sure you're showing up so people can have an idea of who you are, because they're buying into you versus buying into your product or service.
My mind is blown. I'm really, because honestly and truly, as you were answering the question, I was like, he ain't gonna never answer the question. But you really answered the question in like the milestones. What you broke down is obviously like the process that you take someone through, like creating their course. But what I heard was like the steps of a person going from like, I got a course inside of me, right? And I want to make the money. And you go from like helping them understand that the value that they have. Right. To then understanding like getting all the thoughts out of someone's head. And I don't care how much money you have. The value of a brain dump, I don't care what role you're in. You could be a janitor, you could be a millionaire. To brain dump, that like seeing your thoughts on a wall, that's a transformation. And then going from like managing anxiety around the launch. That takes like more than just a course. You know what I mean? Like,
I got some stories on that, but I can't talk about it. But yes.
I wish, listen. Share what you will. So as you walk through the process, what I really, really selfishly wanted to hear was the personal transformation that your client might go through.
Oh.
But you answered it.
And so everybody's is different. And again, though, remember, even though I'm working with them, and not even in the course, but in their brand, remember, I impact those who impact the world. It's not really about their impact. It's about who they're impacting out there. Right? So it's almost like, as far as for me, it was never really about me. It's literally about what am I doing? What is the value that I'm bringing? Like, and so that's the level of transformation where they start to see that, yo, this is real. Like, I'm affecting people's lives and their narratives and their lives and how they think and their perspectives and their opinions about life based off of who I am.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so that transform, it's almost like, yo, you got a kid, you really don't see the kids grow. But then that grandma, that auntie's like, you growing up so fast. I see you last year, or I see you last month, or that you growing up so fast. You don't see it because it's incremental. It's so small. That's what we're talking about, the level of transformation. When I'm walking with this person, they're not seeing it, but the other people on the outside are telling them, and they like, oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, that's what it is.
I'm hearing it. Like, it's like teaching, even if leaders are already leaders, teaching them to be better leaders.
Right.
Because now that I see like my effect on other people in a more tangible way, I'm like, oh, okay. So those incremental changes over time creates better leaders.
Right.
Who sow better seeds.
Right.
Who create better fruit. Blah, 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 blah.
Right. Right.
So that's dope. You're amazing. You already knew that. And your story was dope. Hopefully, not even hopefully, I know there was a purpose in every single thing that you shared with us. From your career transitions, your life transitions, the things that you learned along the way, and also what you do now and how it's all packaged up. So if someone wants to work with you, I think they get a chance to see the different layers that, behind the man who is deeper than the brand. Taking it back. So as we wrap up, thinking about your own journey, honestly and truly, there's somebody out here like looking at everything that you've done. And as of right now, if I look at the course framework, we ain't got a lot of hurdles, but I'm sure you're like experiencing like I would say not experiencing, but going through those, like reflecting on those things along the way. But what you can share a little bit is how someone can take the next step, make the decision on making their transition, making a pivot, and the things that you have learned that have guided you. So if you were to think about your 25-year-old self, and they're in the corporate job right now, they might be looking at a Jose like, I want to be that. Or they're trying to pull out their own Jose. What would you tell them to help them, make their next step, even if they feel like they don't have that guidance right now?
This might go against everything everybody ever said. Right. But if I was I'm talking to the old me. Yeah. It's almost like if I was the 60-year-old me talking to the 40-year-old me, right? So my future self talking to me is keep going, right? Now we start easy with the cliche, keep going. Main reason is, if I were the future self telling myself, yo, do this, do that, and the third, I wouldn't have gone through some of the experiences. I wouldn't have had those trials. I wouldn't have had those obstacles that made me who I am now. Would I do it over differently? Nope. Like, I would do it the exact same way. And even my prayer when I wake up is, God, your perfect will be done. Right? So I want to make sure I'm moving in accordance that, yes, you're giving me free will, but your perfect will. But at the same time, that if you say step, you're guiding my footsteps and I'm just walking. So I know that all things work together for the good. So if I was to tell my 25-year-old self, matter of fact, you seen that LeBron commercial?
Yeah,
the Super Bowl?
I have.
He's like, I can't tell you about that. You know what I'm saying? And the main reason, because you can actually mess up certain things in regards to whatever your journey or your purpose is supposed to be. I know if I told myself, if I was me going back to the 25-year-old, I wouldn't be who I am now. I wouldn't be helping the people I am helping right now. So literally, if I was going back, I'd be like, all right, what up, dude? I'm a 5, or if I was to leave a note, I'd be like, just keep going.
I love that answer. I love that answer. Yeah. I 100% love that answer. One of the things like about guidance that we feel like we lack, you know, when it comes to people who have lived before us is, oh, you could have helped me, like, you know, remove some of the hurdles, right? But I think there's a blessing in just being able to like live and develop self-awareness without somebody telling you what your limits are.
I tell my son this, I was like, I love living vicariously through even where he's at, because I said, if I was at where you're at 19, you wouldn't be here. So I wouldn't change that for the world that he's here. And so at the same time, I was like, now I'm living through him and the things that he's doing and the level of optimism, the way he look at the world, and it's changing even me now because it's a fresh perspective. And I'm like, okay, I need to take that again, removing baggage. You remove baggage daily. And I'm in that space. But again, if I was to tell myself to change one thing, it's the butterfly effect, one thing, it would literally change the outcome of everything. Like I said, my son wouldn't be here, my kid, like the memories that I had, everything would just change. Yeah. So I was like, yeah, nah, let's keep it the same. I like it.
I love it. I love it. I was going to ask you, because I'm reading the Will Smith right now, Will, and the way he parents his kids it's very much like indicative of how he was raised.
Right.
So I was going to ask you, like, how has your self-awareness and things that you've learned in your career affected your parenting? And it sounds like you touched on it just a bit.
Yeah. I was definitely when they were younger, super disciplined, but to the point where my son will always be gentleman. You ask him to this day, what you always going to be? They'll say gentleman. My remaining daughter was like, yo, you will always be a young lady, right? This is what it is, respecting our elders, like taking care of the basics, God first. Everything else will fall in line. So as long as we weren't disrespectful, as long as you were making sure that you were doing what you were doing in regards to your level of belief, even though that's not even the thing I would push on, you know, because I want you to find who you are. I'm very open. Now, at the same time, I use a perfect example. When he was 16, my son, Ashan, shout out to CEO Ashan, I wanted him to get into the entrepreneur space because, again, I found out about this late. I'm like, you need to get in early. He's like, nah, I want to work at the movie theater. I want to work at Old Navy. He was following behind this young lady. Cool, I get it. I was there. But now it's like, okay, let me show you the level of freedom. You asked me today, it's like, oh, what time you get? I say, when I want to. For real, it's not. And that came after I had COVID. It was like, oh, I was rigid. I was grinding. And I looked up the word grind. It was like to pulverize or to break down to slightly particles. And that's what I was doing to my body, my mental and everything, grinding.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, no, I'm going to enjoy this thing we call life, but still be impactful. So going back, again, what I did as far as with even Ashan and my other ones is like, I'm going to just show. And as I showed, he was like, I like this. And he came in, and because of the resources or the seeds that I planted some years ago that flourished into fruit, that flourished into relationships and resources, he's now able to, but I don't resent it. Remember I was talking about my brother?
Your younger brother.
Right? I don't resent it. It's like, yo, I'm getting you into these rooms that I had to pay or invest to get in. And now because you are my son, now you're able to get into these rooms, and then you're supposed to be higher than me. It's supposed to be a higher level of impact than me and then your kids and things of that nature. So the leadership or the parenting now, and it's funny because I get a lot of parents who ask me. And I was like, don't get me wrong, every kid is different, right? You have to listen, but then at the same time, it's almost like a relationship. If we married and I'm saying, yo, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, but there's no fruit of it, you're like, yeah, this is not working out. And you're going to have some resentment. But at the same time, as a parent, we're going to say a little bit, plant the seeds, but show, improve, and then let them come when they want to. Because when they come, it's much more sweeter.
That's beautiful.
It's much more sweeter. Yeah.
What a blessing for you to be able to realize like that full circle moment of you didn't get a chance to be grateful in the moment of bringing your brother up. Now you get a chance to be grateful. That's amazing. And you know what? You answered another question of mine without me even asking, but peace being at the core of your family values and you going through the life, and you answered the question so well. If I had asked it, I don't think it would have come out this nicely. But for you to learn that you were grinding at a point in your career, you know what I mean? And then for you to decide again for yourself that peace is what you choose. Man, I think it's amazing.
Man, I promise y'all, like I said, I had COVID. The first time I had COVID, I had it twice. The first time I had it, 21 days of pure hell on earth. I've never been suicidal. I was then. I prayed to go. It was bad. And what happens is I was down for 3 weeks. But once I got well, which it took a little bit, it was foggy.
Hey guys, it's Ariel from the Work and Play podcast. If you're getting any value from this channel, and I mean anything from the tutorials to the podcast to the random videos that you see on this channel, then I just ask that you do one thing. Please subscribe. Subscribe and share this to anyone that you think this resonates with, and drop a comment below so I know what other things that you want to see next. Now let's get back to the episode.
It felt like work was still there. My clients were still there. So it would have been like 3 days. Everything was still like right there. And I was like, why am I grinding so hard and doing these 3 a.m.s and doing this and waking up late nights and early mornings? I was like, okay, it's time for some change. Because it made me think if I was gone, life's still going to go on. The work's still going to be there, or somebody else going to take it up, right? Same thing even in corporate. It's like they're going to fill your spot within a week. You know what I'm saying? And it changed as far as the way I just look at the world, and it's still changing because, like I said, I've never been suicidal. I was then, and I was just like, okay, you know what? I'm gonna make sure that I'm working back to smarter, not harder. The who, not how. Who I'm gonna put in place. Is what I'm doing resourceful but impactful at the same time, and just. I started naps. I'm like, I have an 80% completion rate as far as daily naps. Sometimes I can't get them, but I got like an 80%. About 80% that I got to get it. You know what I'm saying? Before I wasn't nap, I felt like if I was napping, then it was a problem. It was against the law. Man, I promise you, peace, you can't beat it, because there has been other times where when I didn't have peace, it caused physical stuff for me, right? And as we go on to when I come back for the other podcast, we would talk about that. But it's literally we're manifesting into physical stuff. And I was like, oh yeah, you know what? I'm gonna get that piece back. Yeah.
That's dang. I received so much. Thank you so much. And I know you guys did too. Sometimes I get so into the conversation that I forget we are in the room. Right. And I think that everything culminates. I have nothing. You literally have emptied out the chamber of things that I could possibly ask in this moment. And I think also you poured into those of us who are on our journey, still trying to figure out how do they make a choice, right? Who feel like they don't have someone to guide them. And so while I was going to ask you to share some wisdom, you've already shared a lot of wisdom. But as we get out of here, those of you guys, thank you for watching and thank you for listening to the Work and Play podcast. This is essentially, let's replicate these moments, like where you can just continuously, and then you weave in money making parts all throughout it. So that literally is the vision of the Work and Play podcast, for us to be able to work and enjoy every moment of it every day of the week. So one, I would love for you to help them understand how can they contact you, just stay connected to the journey and learn some free gems along the way until they get, ready to change on, plant some bigger seeds and impact more people. How can they get in contact with you? And then I'll let you close out and have the last word.
Yeah. So easiest way, you got deeperthanthebrand.com. You have @featuring Jose. Featuring Jose, I think on all of them. And then it's like Joseph Bennett or Jose Bennett on Facebook or what have you. But you'll find me. I call it a circle of influence, being able to find somebody on different platforms, make sure they get the same feel. That's another branding tactic that I do. But you will be able to find me, again, at @featuring_Jose. If you actually just start typing featuring, you'll see the dude with the hat to the back. I'm probably sideways. You got the back. Like, again, that's how we move. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, DMs, like I literally answer everybody. I was actually bad at it until I heard Trap, who almost got 1 million followers. That's my guy. He's like, I answer everybody. It's like, no, I ain't got no excuse. Now I got to make sure that I'm hitting everybody back. It might not be in 24 hours, but again, I'm hitting everybody back, like for real. And for those who like, I just want to even get a consultation. And this is one of the things, even till this thing is, and I can't say that. This is going to live forever.
It's going to live forever.
We ain't doing that. Again, we're talking about future proof and 12 years to forever. We always think in advance. But again, at featuring Jose. Am I closing out right now?
Yes, sir. I would love for you to close us out.
The biggest thing, and I'm going to be on this camera as well as on this one, but the biggest thing I need y'all to understand is there's somebody who needs you. There's somebody, and I'll look at it like this. They might not even be born yet, or they might even be going through a problem or a situation right now, and they don't know where to get the answers or the solution, right? We're not just thinking about a course. We're thinking about the pain that you've went through, you've been able to overcome, whether it could be child abuse, domestic abuse, sexual abuse. It could be real estate. It could be taxes. It could be you being a CPA. It could be fitness, nutrition, veganism, whatever. This thing is life or death. That's when I say I'm the brand, I'm talking about literally being life or death, not for you, but for somebody else. So what I'm saying is, if you've been sitting on your hands, or if you've been thinking or overthinking that thing that you need to be doing, that God has told you, Holy Spirit, that still small voice, that friend who has told you maybe you should, that co-worker, that somebody who's been saying, yo, you need to do this. I need you to do it. Like right now, let this be that sign. And you keep saying, no, I'm waiting for a more signing or sign or something. No, this is the sign that I'm telling you that you need to do that thing. It's not for you. It's for somebody else, right? You have a voice in the market that nobody else could feel. You have an experience in the market that nobody else could feel. You have a story in the market that nobody else could feel that needs to be getting out. It is better in the hands of the person who needs it than on your hard drive or in your head. Let's go.
I can't close it out any better than that. Thank y'all so much for watching. Listen to the man. Do what you got to do and be great. Until next week, peace out, y'all.
Can I get a high five?
Hey!
Let's go.